Hi, this is Alex from PHP Academy, and in this video we are going to be retrieving data from a MySQL database using the JavaScript library Jquery. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building up this form that you can see here. I've already got a MySQL database set up. I've just called it AjaxDB. It's got a table in it with called names, and we have some data here. So we've got a name ID just for indexing. We've got a name field here, a location. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be allowing the user to type in a name here, and that's going to retrieve the location and then place that on the page with no refresh. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this works. Now, first of all, it's important to note that when we click grab without typing a name, nothing happens. Also, if we enter a load of spaces and click grab, nothing happens as well. And this is important because we don't want to Ajax to a PHP file if we have no content, because it's a waste of resource. So if I go ahead and enter the name Alex, despite the fact that we have an uppercase A here, it's still going to match. When I go ahead and click grab, it brings back London, and obviously the page didn't refresh. That's just returned the location associated with this name. And then, for example, if we type in Julie and click grab, we get the location back. So this is just a basic example of what we can do, but obviously this can get more advanced. You could pull back multiple bits of data, you could pull back tables. As you follow along the tutorial, you'll see that whatever you output in PHP will actually be placed here. So let's go ahead and start to write this from scratch. So over to our code editor, and all that we've got here to start with is a basic document outline. We're going to be writing everything within the body. We're going to be including Jquery in here, and then our own JavaScript file which is going to handle the clicks. So the first thing we want to look at is our directory structure. So we're currently editing index.php, and I've created 3 folders. Now JS is going to contain a file which is called global.js. This is just going to be our JavaScript file that handles the click on the button. We've got DB, which I've created a file connect.php. That's just going to connect to our database. And Ajax, we have a file called name.php, and this is a file that's going to return the data. So as long as you've got these 3 folders and these files, we're ready to go and actually build this in a relatively short amount of time. So the first thing is we are going to build the form itself. So we'll go ahead and create a text here. I'm not really following things like labels or anything like that, but we're just going to create a really quick example. So we're going to create an input type of text, and we're going to go ahead and give this an ID, and that's going to be name. Now on the next line, I'm going to create another input, and this time this is going to be submit, and I'm going to give this an ID of name-submit. Now the reason I'm doing this is just so we can target these elements within Jquery, so we know that we can say when this ID is clicked, so this button here is clicked, then retrieve the value where the ID is name, and then output to the div below. So I'm going to give a div with an ID of name data. So we've got name submit, that's clicked, it retrieves this value and it outputs between here. So as long as we've got the markup, we can target this. So what we need to do now is we need to load in Jquery. So I'm going to create an empty script tag, and the source here is going to be the Jquery library. So I'm just going to pull this from jquery.com. It's probably better to use something like Google CDN or a local version, but I'm going to be pulling it just from here for the sake of the tutorial. So over to here, and we're just going to paste that within the source attribute of our script tag. So now I'm going to create another script element, and here is going to be js/global.js. Let me just bring this down a bit. I'll go ahead and open JS. It's global.js from the JS folder, and this is where, like I said, we're going to write our own JavaScript. Okay, so let's go ahead and first of all connect to our database. Because we're using a MySQL database, we need to connect to it. So within the PHP file that we use, as long as we've sent the data through to this file, then we'll include our connect script. So I've placed this in a separate file, as we've already seen. We've got connect.php. Let's go ahead and do that now and test the connection just to make sure we're all set up and ready to go. So I'm just using the MySQL function set, but obviously you might be using something different. It's recommended to use something different, but again, for the sake of the tutorial, this is just a quick and easy example. So I'm connecting to the server localhost. My username is root and I don't have a password. and I am selecting a database. Now the database name here is AjaxDB. I've just called it AjaxDB. So AjaxDB. Okay, so let's go over to our browser and access this file. So it's in db/connect.php. We don't have any errors here, and error reporting's on for me, so I can assume that this file will successfully connect to our database. And oh, there we go. We've got our preview of our form as well. So let's just go ahead and give this a label, or a value rather, of grab. Okay, so when I refresh, that's changed to grab. Okay, so we're all set up on that end. Let's go ahead and just open our Ajax folder and open name.php. This is where we're going to read in the data that we send from our JavaScript file and then output. That's then going to be sent back to our, or retrieved with our post method within Jquery, and then we can insert the contents into here. Okay, so inside of global.js, what do we need to do? Well, we need to target this name submit ID, and we need to say that when that's clicked, we can then start acting. So we create a selector, and the selector is going to target then input with a type of name. Can't even remember what I called it. Name submit. So let's go ahead. Oh, sorry, I'm in the completely wrong file. Global.js we need. So I'm going to say .on. I'm using the on method, and I'm going to say on click, I want to run this anonymous function. Now what this is going to do is it's going to run everything inside of here when we click on that button. So for example, I'm just going to go ahead and alert 1 for now, and we'll just know if this is working now. So when I click grab, we get an alert of 1. So we know that event handler is working. So we've attached the click event handler to this button. So the next thing we're going to do is actually retrieve the name that's been typed within the form. So I'm going to say var name is equal to, and in here we need another selector. So this is going to be input with the type, the ID of name, and then we're going to use .val to retrieve the value from this. So again, for testing purposes, let's go ahead and alert out name and refresh. When I type in Alex, for example, and click grab, it returns my name. So now that we've got that, the next thing to do is to send this name to our file, basically post this data to our PHP file. But I don't want to post it if this name is empty, because that's a waste of resource. We don't want Ajax to the file unless the name is okay. So I'm going to create an if statement, and the condition is going to be if name is not equal to nothing. Now we've got a problem here. Let's go ahead and alert 1. Now if I was to go ahead and click grab, that's fine. We're not getting that alert. However, if I was to type a few spaces and click grab, we alert 1. So we want to accommodate for the fact that users could be typing spaces and then submitting this. So we're going to use the Jquery trim method around name. So what's going to happen now is that data will be trimmed before within that condition. So if I click grab now, type a few spaces and click grab, nothing happens. So as long as characters are typed in there, then we can actually perform our post method. So we're going to create or use the post method to send this data. The first parameter is the file that we want to send this to. And the file we want to send this to is ajax/name.php, which is this file here. So we've got ajax/name.php. The second parameter is a JSON string of the values, the key values. So name is the name of the variable that we're sending through to the PHP file, and the data we're sending is name. So I've called them the same thing, so it looks a bit complicated, but we've got name is the name that we're passing through to this file, and this is the value. So essentially this would be name Alex, if that was the case and I'd typed in Alex. The third is another anonymous function. This time what we're doing is we are grabbing this data that's returned, and we are doing something with it. So for example, we could alert data. So what we're going to do is inside of name.php, we're just going to output something. And what this will do is it will place that into this data variable here, and then it will alert that data. So if I go ahead and echo PHP tags first and echo hello, what's going to happen is when we click on the event handler, we're going to take the name, as long as it's not empty, we're going to Ajax to the file, and then we're going to return whatever's returned from this file here, which will be hello. So let's go ahead and try this out. I click grab, nothing's happening. I need to type a name, click grab, and then hello is output. So this has been passed through from the PHP file. So we're already making really good progress here, but obviously we don't want to echo hello from the name.php file. What we want to do is we want to place what's returned within this div element here. So it's name data. So what we do is we go ahead and we use another selector and we say div hash name data. Obviously we don't need to include these here, but it's just so you can see what's going on. So name data dot text, so we're using the dot text method, and what we're placing inside data. So this will just place plain text within the element that we specify. So now when we echo content, for example, and I go ahead and type a name and click grab, we alert content. So that's going into that element. If we inspect it, we can see that we've got the div here and then the content's being placed within. So all that's left to do now is actually process this with PHP. So there are a series of checks that we need to do before we actually start querying the database, because again, we need this data to be available. We can't enter it in the form, but it can easily be modified to look like we've sent data. So what we need to do is create a condition in PHP, and we need to check if this $_post name is set. So if that's equal to true, then we can proceed. So this has been passed through as post data. If, for example, you'd used get, then this here would be get. But post is generally faster, and we're not using the Ajax method because this is such a simple example. Okay, we also want to check whether it's not true. So we're going to say and empty $_post name is equal to false. So we want the data to be set, and we don't want it to be empty. So what do we do then? Well, then we can go ahead and require in our database connection file. So remember, here we connected to our database. That's in db / and the file is connect. So we need to traverse back a directory, because remember we're within the Ajax directory now. So we need to go back a directory, then into db, and then require in connect.php. So now, once we've connected to our database, we can query the database and then output the value as long as the rows returned don't equal 0, i.e. something's been returned. Otherwise, we're going to return a message saying name not found. So the query, let me just bring this down a bit, is equal to a MySQL query, and this is a string, and let's go down a couple of lines, and we're going to say select, and we're selecting a particular field from the names table, which will be location. So let me just run over this in phpMyAdmin. We're selecting names.location from names. So we can go ahead and add that in from names. And we have a where clause as well. And the where clause is going to be where names.name is equal to something. Now this something we need to go ahead and inject into the string, and this is going to be $_post name. Now we need to take necessary precautions here. The first thing we're going to do is trim this again. Now we've already trimmed it within JavaScript, but the only problem is if data was being sent directly to this file, we also want to trim this. We also want to take precautions for SQL injection. So we're going to say MySQL real escape string, and what that will do is that will just escape any characters that might form an SQL injection in our database. So now that we've done that, that's all we need to do. So now, that's all we need to do for the query. What we now need to do is check if the rows don't equal 0, so something's been returned. If the rows don't equal 0, we can return the result, the location field. Otherwise, we want to return name not found. So we want to echo, and we're going to use a ternary operator, and I'll just write the syntax out and then explain. So this is the condition here. If the condition is met, this will be returned, which is just an empty string at the moment. Otherwise, this will be returned. So the condition is, and I'm using the MySQL num rows, which isn't ideal, but again, for the purpose of this tutorial, is quick. We don't want that to equal 0. And the query that we're using is here. So we're passing through the query. This will return the number of rows, so it more or less always be 1. Really, in this case, we may have multiple names, which I haven't accommodated for, again, because this is an example, but you know, there we go. Okay, so if the number of rows returned doesn't equal 0, we want to return MySQL result, passing through the query, the row number, which will be 0, because we're assuming we're only ever going to have one name returned, and then we need to specify the field, again, which is location. Otherwise, we want to return name not found. So just to recap, we're checking the data is available and not empty. If so, we're requiring in the connect, we're querying the database, and then we're returning the result of the location based on the fact that the row count doesn't equal 0. If the row count does equal 0, we return this name not found string. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this out. Hopefully nothing's gone wrong. Click grab, nothing's happened. In fact, I'm going to bring up the network tab in Chrome Web Tools, and when I click grab, you'll see that nothing happens. We don't have any Ajax files here. When I go ahead and type in Alex and click grab, we return London, and you can see that we've hit name.php in the Ajax folder. The methods post, which we knew, the status is okay. It's told us the time, etc. But the point is here that we haven't Ajaxed this file unless data has been available. Oh, and obviously London has been returned as the location. If we go ahead and type in Julie and click grab, Chorley, and Stephen, click grab, and Canada. So that was a tutorial on how to retrieve database values using the JavaScript library Jquery.